So this image that we're seeing on screen right now is really the front elevation of the building. We kept a very simple building form. It's a rectangular plan form, and it's the simplest and the most economical to build, with basically a gabled roof. And one of our aspirations, and many of you may have seen the model that's been displayed at Rime Center. It has a stupa on top of the roof, and we've basically incorporated that element with advice from Lama Matt and from Geshe Thinley onto the roof structure here as well. It has a front porch, and then the main building is behind the front porch. And the porch itself, as you can see here, is there's a railing in the front, and then as you go off to the left side of the building, there's actually a ramp that slopes down to the to ground level, so that way the entire building becomes accessible to those who are in a wheelchair or need additional help getting up to the main level. The main level, we think, would typically be about 4 or 5 steps up from ground. So this is, we'll come back to the elevation, but here what we have is the site plan of the building. So the arrows that you see going up and down essentially represent the roof slope. There's a main spine. There are some concentric, or rather squares that you see in the middle of the roof, and that is the stupa itself. And so that's really, yeah, that's the stupa, and to the left of it is the porch. And then further to the left of it is essentially an extension from the sidewalk leading up to the front door. What we have, I think most of our Sangha members are familiar with the location of the site. We're at the intersection of 30th and Highland in Kansas City, Missouri. And really the city stipulates that we have certain setbacks that we are required to maintain from the street, from adjacent properties. So, and there are different dimensions, and we've respected all of those dimensions. And essentially what we've come up with is a building that as it's located here in the diagram, you can see that allows for one vehicular access from Highland Avenue, which is there. And then, so that's a way in, angled parking. That way we can maybe squeeze in 1 or 2 more parking spaces. And then the driveway goes behind our building and comes out onto 30th Street. So there's 2 curb cuts for vehicles and 1 pedestrian access directly from Highland Avenue. That's the basic makeup of the site. We expect to have about 11 parking spaces, which we think at this point, I mean, everything that we've done right now, we believe is what's required by code. We'll have to react if our building department basically throws us some curveballs in terms of any of our requirements or any of the understandings that we have to date. But we believe that there's going to be a requirement, a formal requirement of 7 parking spaces. And what we were able to accommodate on site is a few more than that. So we've basically got 10 regular parking spaces and 1 ADA space. We can choose to allocate it as appropriate, but clearly we know that that this amount of parking isn't going to be sufficient for the number of attendees that we typically have on any given Sunday. And we will have access to street parking as well. So there'll be some parking on site and other off-site parking, which is contemplated to be part of the scheme, and it's permitted by the city as such.
All right, thank you. Want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, just very quickly, basically wanted to point out that we also have some illumination on the site with some street lights. There's about a half a dozen low-level street lights that will illuminate the parking lot, so that we have some illumination in the from dusk to dawn, those hours. Okay, next slide. Now what we're basically seeing is a close-up view of the building's floor plan itself. And I'm going to minimize my screens here so I can see all of the building. There we go. Again, on the left, the building is oriented the same way as the site plan. On the far left, we see about four steps coming up to the porch, and then directly leading to a couple of double doors. That's our front doors. Once you open the front doors, you're in the lobby space. On the top of the page is the lobby area where there's some benches shown. That's essentially where we will have some benches and have some storage for shoes. And that's on the north side. I should have mentioned earlier, north is on the top of the page, south is to the bottom of the page, east on the right, and west on the left. So on the lower part of the lobby, we actually have our gift shop. We have a place for that. Again, the dimensions are indicated on the drawing. It's roughly about 11 by 18 is the space. And then once you get past the gift shop, we have on the left side, the north side of the hallway, we've shown here currently two restrooms, so a men's room and a women's room. Each of them has probably one more fixture than what is required by code. Men's room would have one water closet, two urinals. Women's have three water closets, and each restroom has two sinks. There's also a drinking fountain between the two, which is also a code requirement because we're considered to be we are a religious building, but also a place of public assembly. And when we are a public assembly building, there are certain things that code requires us to conform to, and that's why one of those is that drinking fountain. Right across from the men's room, we'll actually have a set of stairs going downstairs to the basement level. We contemplate that in order for us to meet our program, even if we are going to mimic the spaces that we currently have at Rime Center downtown, we will require some additional spaces. And those have been accommodated in the basement level, which we will get to here shortly. But what we have is an internal set of stairs that leads us downstairs to the basement level. And once again, in order to meet accessibility requirements, we actually have an elevator that will allow for those in a wheelchair or those who would prefer to use an elevator to go down from the first level down to the basement level. On the top left corner, just behind the lobby, is the ramp that I was alluding to earlier. And that basically brings people from the parking lot up the ramp to a 90-degree to a landing, and then up onto the porch itself. So that basically somebody who is parking in the parking lot can have easy access up to the porch through the front doors to the main level, and then via the elevator down to the lower level. Adjacent to the elevator, we have an office, and then past the office, we actually are showing a pair of double doors there and into the main shrine room. That double doors basically allows us to maintain a quieter environment and kind of acoustically isolate us from any noisy activities that might be happening, in the bathrooms or lobby area, or maybe daycare downstairs, those types of activities. So we have a quieter environment for meditation, for our service in the shrine room itself. The overall proportions of the shrine room are roughly about the same as what we currently have at Rime Center downtown. And what we're showing on the far right side of the room is the shrine itself. We've basically elevated that up with one step. It's about 6 inches higher, one step up. And the shrine itself is in the area that is, there's a label that says built-in casework 30 inches deep. And that's basically where we will have our scriptures and a statue of the Buddha. And there's a dash line in front of it. That's really the rug that we currently have at Rime. And that sort of gives us a little bit of a sense of scale. We have certain elements that we currently can recognize from Rime, and that will make their way over to the new building. And the 3 dash boxes that you see are for the for Geshe-la or for Lama Matt in the middle, and then for the two preceptors on either side. It's much wider than the casework and the cabinetry that we currently have. Overall width of this entire room is just shy of about 45 feet, so it's 43 feet. And then the platform that we have would be about close to 28 feet wide. That's the entire width of the platform. And then we have about just under 8 feet to the north of the platform, leading to the exit stair on the top right corner, and then one on the bottom right corner. There's another exit door there. Once again, you have a similar number of steps going down to the grade level, to ground. The pillows are represented with the square dashed lines. And again, we have some flexibility. That's kind of the arrangement we've shown. Currently, we have 4 across and 7 deep. In this diagram, we're showing 3 across and 8 deep. Overall seating capacity will remain about the same as what we currently have. And, you know, it's coincidental that the building, as it's currently laid out, after we have the setbacks and the driveway for the vehicles, the parking lot and all of that, we've worked our way backwards to determine the building size. This is the maximum building size that we can build over here. We cannot make it any bigger. I think any flexibility, we might get another foot in the horizontal or the east-west direction. That sort of remains to be seen. But for the most part, we've maxed out the building on site. We can go downstairs.
Well, I just wanted to, because the next slide is the alternate bathroom concept. So the board met yesterday and we were looking at these designs. And one of the things we talked about was getting rid of the gender binary bathrooms and switching to a gender neutral bathroom set. And I actually, just to help with this look, so you can kind of see, this is what a gender neutral bathroom would be. So you kind of walk in and then it's almost like several mini bathrooms where it's just the stall. And then you, in this image kind of close to the bottom, that's like a communal sink that you would have. So what this does is, one, it gets away from the gendered binary notion. It's kind of moving towards a more gender neutral. People still have the privacy of the bathrooms. You can see it's more like a smaller room that has, or a water closet, is what Raj was calling it yesterday. And you can see actually in this, to the right is the ADA compliant bathroom as well. So that way, if somebody has a wheelchair, they're able to get into it. And what this does is it just kind of frees up that space a little bit more, and it makes it a little nicer for everybody. So that was just one of the concepts that we thought about yesterday with the board changing. And in the survey form, we actually kind of want to hear your opinions about that as well. So, all right, so we'll move down to the basement.
Okay, so so we actually, as we were talking about this, we basically have a couple of different options in the basement, because we are up against a challenging budget, and what we'd like guidance from the contractors when they bid on this project is to basically be able to tell us how much of the building we can afford. Initial thoughts were just to build the shrine room and the restrooms, a lobby, and on grade no basement. But that was one concept. But since we get one chance at this, we thought it might be a good opportunity for us to build a basement and figure out how much of the budget is available to us. That would determine what parts of our program, of our space program, the spatial program, that we can actually introduce into the finished building. So for starters, it might just be everyone's basement that has nothing but access to the basement the elevator goes down, and we basically finish it out later if the budget becomes to be challenging. In this scenario, the basement would be a concrete floor, concrete walls, and there's effectively nothing in the basement other than an exit. We are required to have two exits from the basement. We have another exit shown on the bottom right corner, and then the main stair that goes up through the lobby and out. So that becomes the second exit. Um, the next page, in fact, actually shows what we would like to build if we have if the market basically tells us that we have the budget available, then this is where we would like to go in terms of meeting our requirements. So we've basically chopped up the basement into several rooms. And I'll start with the bottom left corner, room number one. Again, we haven't labeled them by room numbers. Room number one actually space for
Hey Raj, just real quick, you're kind of breaking up on my end. Can you just repeat that real quick?
Sure. Room number one would effectively be a room for Geshe-la's quarters, and with the top part of it being sort of a living room arrangement, and then the lower indent basically being his bedroom area, a little studio, if you will. That's essentially contemplated for room number one. Room number two is long and skinny, 11 feet by 23 feet. That could potentially become a room for visit monks. We have monks come by our Rime Center a couple of times a year. Anybody else who's visiting for a brief period of time. And we can basically contemplate having cots kind of laid out in a north-south direction so that they're all facing each other. You know, to see two people there. And in this space, I'll just stay with the rooms for a moment for room three, adjacent to the stairs. Yeah, the room three could basically be a room for our homeless outreach program where we could store our supplies. It's long and skinny, but it allows us to basically have a long wall and on the short wall opposite from the door on the south side. So that way there's enough storage shelving, and we can basically, grab material from there, go out the door, and go up the elevator, upstairs, through the lobby, the porch, and then down the ramp to the van that's waiting down there to load up the van. So that's, without really or something like that, it makes it convenient to transport material from room three directly to the parking lot outside. Room four, once again, is unassigned, and it becomes potentially becomes a storage space for folding tables and chairs and things like that. We were talking about it. Maybe it doesn't have the door on the top left corner of the room. Maybe the entire right wall of the room of room four potentially becomes an opening, and it really is an three-sided. This walls on three sides, and the long side facing the multi-purpose room essentially could be drapes, and it just allows easy access to tables and chairs that are located in that room number four space. What we also have is north of room number four is a space for our kitchen, where we would actually have cabinetry, stove, sink, fridge, and pretty much everything that we currently have, but a little bit more spacious than and more functional than what we currently have. And then past the kitchen, we have in the room there that's labeled as a laundry. We would have a washer dryer, maybe a water heater, a mop sink. We're required to have a mop sink by building code requires us to have that in a religious building to be able to maintain cleanliness in kitchen and bathroom areas. Further behind or to the left of that space, we basically have a room for our furnace and for our electrical panels and those types of things in that room. What we're showing over here in the basement are essentially two unisex bathrooms. And in this, we also have, in both the unisex bathrooms, we're also showing a shower stall. And now that becomes something that that would be very helpful for Geshe-la, for him to use when he's residing here, or for the visiting monks when they're stopping by. So there's two bathrooms, both with showers. Something that again can be utilized by for our sangha members when we're downstairs. We can use the bathroom. It's unisex. Again, it's not quite the same as a neutral bathroom, but it's unisex and that anybody can use it. There are 5-foot circles shown in the dash line inside each bathroom, which basically indicates that it's a 5-foot space from which to be able to turn around. And so people, you hear me? I just
you were breaking up a little bit more, but
okay,
you were.
So I'll get closer to my laptop. Apologies. But basically, the unisex bathroom allows it to be accessible for those in wheelchairs as well. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, and I think it was data loss with the connection,
Okay.
not so much a microphone.
Okay, gotcha.
And so one of the things we were also talking about was with this multi-purpose room. This would be like where the kids, the Dharma school could be down there. When we have like events like Losar and stuff like that, you know, we could have the shrine room as kind of a more sacred space, and then having more family activities downstairs in that more multi-purpose room.
Okay. Thanks for those who are already answering questions from the Sangha. I'm not paying attention to that as I'm speaking, but I just had a quick chance to glance at it. So I think some others are filling in with responses to questions being asked. I appreciate it. So unisex bathrooms are what we were talking about. Now, potentially there's a concept aside from a gender neutral bathroom, which basically has water closets in a partitioned off area and the sinks in a common area. We could do that as a gender neutral bathroom. Or would you mind going back upstairs to the first floor plan, Lama Matt? Right, thank you. So what we could potentially do is, in the same width that is available to us for the men's and women's room, side to side, we could potentially have 3 unisex bathrooms, 2 regular, 1 disabled accessible, and they would basically have a self-contained water closet and a sink. So it would be just like the ones downstairs, except we wouldn't have showers upstairs. And that way we would have 3 unisex bathrooms. Each of them could be outfitted with, all of these bathrooms could be outfitted with a diaper changing facility. Those types of amenities could be included, but a slightly different concept from a gender neutral bathroom could be this concept of having unisex bathrooms just like the ones shown below, except we would have no showers, and there would be 3 of those upstairs, and that would basically result in less space being allocated for bathrooms, and potentially the north part of these bathrooms up against the exterior wall, maybe that becomes one room becomes accessible from the shrine room for storage, and another becomes accessible from the lobby. So we could probably get some additional space behind these 2 bathrooms that can be more functional for us. And that's another variation to the bathroom concept. Okay, so I think that we're done with that and the basement, right. So now this diagram is essentially a cross section is what we refer to it as. and that shows what it might look like if we were to actually cut the building uh, vertically. And in this scenario, we're cutting the building through the shrine room and looking towards the cabinetry that forms the shrine itself. And essentially what you see is that about 28 foot of cabinetry that we were talking about earlier. There's a statue, a much larger statue of the Buddha. There's a place for that here. Scriptures on either side, photographs and other smaller sculptures. The dimensions we were talking about, roughly about 8 feet on either side of the two wing walls. Those basically would lead to the exit doors on either corner, on both corners. And that's what the shrine room would look like. The multi-purpose room down below is really the entire width of that shrine room. It's from that north wall to the south wall. Now, what we're basically talking about is a column-free space upstairs in the shrine room. And the shrine room would basically, while it would be column-free, we think that we can, in the interest of economy, we can actually live with 1 or 2 rows of columns downstairs in the multi-purpose room. That doesn't really impede our activities, so we can still, it can still function, but the lower level is the is potentially will potentially have 1 or 2 rows of columns. In this cross section, what we're showing is if the building was to be a steel frame building, then it kind of gives us a nice clean look in terms of the the high volume space, and because it's framed with steel. The next cross section that we have is essentially another cross section through the building, but this one basically shows a wood frame, and where you can see that the elements, the structural members, there are a lot more. The wood frames are closer together just because wood cannot span as far and is required to be spaced out a little bit more closely than a steel frame. Some structural constraints there, but this one is a cross section through the elevator shaft and through the restrooms, but this time we're looking towards the front door on the upper level, and then the 2 doors downstairs are doors that access room number 1 on the left side and room number 2 on the right side. And that's just basically giving us a cross section through the building. What you can see is on the left and the right side, you can see a couple of horizontal lines. That basically shows how high the ground is and how much of the basement is in fact below ground level. That's right. Thank you. So that's the basic makeup of the building. And then now the last page really is back to our front elevation. And that shows the front porch, which is the lower roof. And then the high roof is above the main building, which is everything from the lobby all the way to the back end of the shrine room. And here we have the side elevation, which basically can be interpreted as we're trying to squeeze 2 drawings in one. The left side of the drawing basically shows if it was a wood frame building, wood shingles, wood siding, and then a stone veneer base, just so that it has a more solid looking base on the bottom. It very much mimics what residential construction might look like. And on the right side of the page, we're seeing the same stone veneer base. We can still have a stucco-like material in between, and then on the upper part we have a metal roof. Once again, if it is a steel framed roof, a steel framed trusses and steel roof, the right side is what it would look like. We were contemplating something that has the appearance of a copper roof. It won't really be copper. It would just be a pre-finished material that looks like copper. And so those are the 2 different elements to it: a steel frame building on the right side with steel roof, and a wood frame building on the left side with a wood shingle roof. The stupa will be there regardless in either scenario, and the rest of the elevation doesn't change. That's kind of a very broad brush presentation of what the building looks like, and both Lama Matt and I are open to questions.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay, so I'm going to unmute everyone. Feel free, you can mute yourself if you want to, but again, we're at 12:05. Let's just take 5 minutes or so if anybody has any comments, and then as those people have comments, I'll also look at some of our group chat as it comes through. So speak up if you have any comments.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. And then, so Sergio, you were saying natural light in the basement. That's one of the things we're going to look at or talk about with the board is can we, the thought is if we put natural light in the basement, we're going to have to lift the building up a couple of feet so the basement won't be as deep into the ground. But that's one of the things the board's going to talk about. Landscaping, as far as landscaping, you know, there will be plants and other landscape. Some of the things we've talked about is having kind of like rain gardens and stuff like that with landscaping, but that's, I think it's too early to give any specifics right now, but there will be landscaping. And one of the things, and Raj didn't talk about it, but he mentioned yesterday was that the outside would have a little bit of a ledge where that stone wainscot is. So in the future, we were thinking it would be nice to have like some prayer wheels set on each side, the north and south side, so people could circumambulate aura with the building and actually have prayer wheels as they do at the same time.
They have that in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be a down the road thing, but the building would be built with the intention of that being the case.
I have a
And
question.
then sound traveling up from the multi-purpose area, we anticipate it not. We would want that to be insulated enough that you don't hear the kids and stuff like that, like you do currently. Somebody else have a question? I'm sorry.
I have a question. Currently, when we have large events where we expect a lot of people, like New Year's Eve meditation, we have all the chairs that are put out in the shrine room, and they're stored right now behind those screens in the shrine room. Is there any storage of that size in the shrine room in this design?
No, and the chairs and tables would actually be kept downstairs. So that might be a thing where we would have to use the elevator to bring them upstairs, or we could, you know, when Raj was talking about alternate to the bathroom where it would free up storage space behind the bathroom, you could then say, well, that's where we're going to keep a lot of our chairs for the like world peace meditation, or when we pick up cushions, we put them in storage space. All right. Library, so that was a question that came up. So in the initial design, it said office. We were actually thinking the office could be that room 4, that real thin room downstairs. And the upstairs that says office would actually be library / classroom in the design. And then as far as flooring quotes, usually the general contractor, because they actually warranty a lot of that material. So if we do the full design, if the market, like Raj said, if the market supports our budget and we can have everything created, the general contractor would actually be in charge of that flooring. If it would be something where the market doesn't support our budget and we just have to have open concrete downstairs, we as a Sangha would have to do that remodeling down the road, and then we might be able to utilize any products or other things that the Sangha would be able to donate to the project. All right. Any other questions or comments? These are all great.
Just one, Matt. Do you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
So I think I talked to you about this, in the beginning when the concept was that we were moving, and having been at the other monastery in India, you know, in Tibet, I do know some contractors that know specifically, and I'm sure Yeshala does too. Is that something to consider? I made, if that's okay with you, I made copies of the renderings to send to the prospective people. Would you like me to do that or not?
Well, as far as what?
The
Are you talking about the
contractor.
building overall, or?
Yeah, the contractor, to have a contractor that knows how to build a Buddhist temple or a.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, fortunately, because the project's moving so fast, we've actually contacted, I believe, 3 contractors right now.
Oh, you have. Okay.
Yeah, and the goal is Tuesday we're going to take the Sangha's comments and feedback, and the board will review them and just tweak the plans if needed, and then
Okay.
the bid we then the conceptual architects will redesign it according to our final vision, and those plans at the end of next week go out to the bidders. By the end of March, we'll have bids that then the board will pick from with the general contractor. So unfortunately, our window of time is really short, and I'm afraid trying to find other contractors doesn't mean that you can't. I just don't think we would be able to hear back from them in time before we start trying to pick a bid. I don't know, Raj, if you have any other thoughts on that.
I mean, they could.
The only thing I was curious about is, are the contractors Kansas City based?
Local? No. No, but they would be willing. The one person I'm thinking of has easily relocated. You know, obviously that would be another consideration to house them, but they came from Florida to build the Kajutuptan Choling Maitreya Center. And I mentioned it to Matt before, you know, he had, so him and his cousin primarily did that building in addition to renovating the stupa.
Yeah, and the other thing is we're kind of relegated to the design, and just because of cost. We're trying to keep it somewhat simple. Now, I will say we are open to getting feedback and ideas because, you know, Raj talked about the cut-in for the shrine. The general contractor won't build it. Well, we will want to design and build that on our end. So I would anticipate we want to talk to somebody about building a shrine that looks very traditional, yet east kind of meets west, because I don't anticipate us using the current shrine that we have. And Geshe-la has sat down with myself and Benaya, and we've kind of started that conversation, but we're willing to you know, share the love with that specifically. So
also, Lama Matt, briefly, the front elevation, the 2 roofs that you see in the drawing, both of those and the columns, even though we're showing them as being just very simplistic supports and frames, they lend themselves to some ornamentation as the front door. There are elements that can come in later that make it more temple-like. So there is the opportunity. So what we're doing is we're trying to get the basic building and framework done, and then we can augment it further to make it more, you know, a Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist temple-like.
Yeah, makes sense.
all right, well, let's.
And thank you for considering the gender-neutral bathrooms. That's imperative, and the ramp, you know, accessibility. That's key. Yeah.
So I'm just going to mute everyone. We're going to continue our picture. Okay. So we'll end our service today. And again, look for the email tomorrow. You'll see a survey link in there. We want your feedback, just so that way the board can take a lot of your thoughts and considerations into the project itself.